is going to be a little on the side of caution and warning. In one of its sections, there are actually 20 sections to today's Torah. We'll probably only hit about 4 or so. But for young people, for you, especially young men and young ladies, the Torah portion today is of vital importance because it deals with situations that are going on even as we speak. Right now, if you have been watching the news, watching television, I'm sure with the internet, all the different news outlets that are there, a lot of situations are going on about men and women, and he did this, and people have been fired. And today, interestingly enough, the Torah portion is going to give us some insight and teaching into that area. So I ask that you young people, that you pay close attention. And this is one of the reasons why in the Hebraic model, the children are not sent to the back to Sunday school, Sabbath school. The children are listening to the Torah, but they're also listening to the studies. They're listening to the teachings. And a lot of those things go over their head. But it's when it touches them. And I want all you children to understand something. When you hear me teach something and you don't understand what I'm talking about, ask your mom and ask your dad. Because they're your teachers. And they will be able to explain to you on that. Sometimes they'll tell you, well, let's hold up that another week or another year. Sometimes they'll tell you, but they have the wisdom to tell you. But this is for the Torah to get into your heart because, and I'm going to tell this to parents and to every one of us knows this, and I've said this many times, if not here, where? If not now, when? And so our children are being bombarded at school. You should see what they're teaching in schools. Sometimes parents come up to me and say, you know, and Sherry's niece the other day was was telling us that one of the teachers was telling fourth graders, I think, third, fourth graders, you know, second graders, and first graders too, you know, telling them about, you know, this and that, and wait a second, it's so, but why doesn't nobody react against that? And so because we don't react against that, one of the things is that they are corrupted by the world before we're able to uncorrupt them. So remember, our teachings here are to uncorrupt what has already been corrupted. So sometimes a lot of people say, well, that's kind of hard. That's hard language. But remember, they already know it. They already know it. And today, for the first time, we have Manuel Sanchez, who's going to read from the Torah scroll. And of course, this is his first time. And for those of you that don't know, when we read the Torah scrolls, we are reading with no vowels. There are no vowels in the text. It's just consonants. And of course, a totally different text and we're reading from right to left. So it's a little trocao, if you know what that word means. I don't know how to say that in English. Lopsided, I guess. But let's believe that Adonai is going to, for the first time, but from now on, be able to allow more of our young people, our young men, to read.
And he who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Yaakov, may he bless Manuel, who has come up to honor Yahweh and the Torah. May the Holy One bless him and his family and send blessings and prosperity on all the works of his hands. Amen. Baruch et Yahweh Hambarak, Baruch Yahweh Hambarak L'Ream Vayed, Baruch atah Yahweh Eloheinu melech haolam, Asher bakobano mikol ha'amein, Ve'natan lano et Torato, Baruch atah Yahweh Noteng HaTorah. Amen. Praise Yahweh who is blessed. Bless Yahweh who is blessed forever and ever. Blessed are you, Yahweh, ruler of the universe, who chose us from all peoples and gave to us the Torah. Blessed are you, Yahweh, giver of the Torah. Amen.
וישלח יעקב מלאכים לפניו אל עשיו אחיו סייר ארסה Sair Sada Edom.
Baruch atah Yahweh Eloheinu melech haolam, Asher natan lanu Torah emet, V'hayei olam nata b'Elokeinu. Baruch atah Yahweh Noteng HaTorah. Amen. Blessed are you, Yahweh Elohim, ruler of the universe, who gave to us the Torah of truth and life everlasting planted in our midst. Blessed are you, Yahweh, giver of the Torah. Bezod HaTorah asher sam Moshe b'nei Israel pe Yahweh biyad Moshe. This is the Torah which Moshe placed before the children of Israel. It is in accord with Adonai's command by the hand of Moshe. Amen. Oh, go ahead. Okay, there we go. Got it. Okay.
That was an excellent reading. Excellent reading. And it has always been the way of Israel that the reading of the Torah belongs to the men of the congregation. So every male here is encouraged to study Hebrew. And we are going to have a Hebrew class. We are going to have a Hebrew class in between the years. In between the years. And what that means is that since we do not celebrate Christmas over here, and it's an off season for us, in fact, we here do not celebrate the holidays. How many have ever heard the term happy holidays? There are no holidays in the winter. The term holiday comes from holy day. And according to Leviticus 23, there's only 7 holy days throughout the year. The holidays are in 2 groups. The spring holidays, which are Passover, unleavened bread, first fruits, and the Feast of Weeks. Those are the spring holy days or holidays. And then in the fall, we have 3 holy days or holidays, and that is the Feast of Trumpets, and the Feast of Yom Kippur, and the Feast of Sukkot, or tabernacles. And so those are the only holidays that we have. So happy holidays are either in the spring or they are in the fall. But now we are not in a holiday season. Now the pagan world is in a holiday season for them. And that's the solstice, which ends on December 25th, actually the 23rd this year. But the 25th is when in the ancient world they were able to, with the naked eye, be able to see the sun born again. And that was the birth of El Sol, the sun. And so where we get Sunday, and 400 years, actually 300 and some years after Yeshua, and his birthday was changed from October, when he was born, onto December 25th to coincide with the pagan celebrations to Mithra and Saturnalia and all kinds of other shenanigans that still go on today at that same season. And now a lot of people say, well, wait a second, how about Hanukkah? Isn't Hanukkah a holiday? No, it's not. Hanukkah is a celebration. Both Hanukkah and Purim are not holidays in the biblical sense. They're not holy days. Hanukkah and Purim are celebrations like what we would call 4th of July. They are celebrations that celebrate our liberation, our liberty from pagan religious devotion. Remember, with Purim, it was Haman. With with Hanukkah, it was Antiochus. And so these are just celebrations, so we do not, they are not holidays. So, but among ourselves, we could say Happy Hanukkah because it's a joyous time. Both Hanukkah and Purim are joyous times. So we could say Happy Hanukkah, but they are not holidays. According to, when people tell you Merry Christmas or whatever, feel free to say Shalom or Yom Tov. Yom Tov means have a good day. Yom Tov, it's a good day. And so one of the things that we would encourage everyone as we are coming into this season, and we are going to be talking about it on Wednesday nights. So I really pray that many of you could come on Wednesday nights, because on Wednesday nights we, what I speak to you here, we wrestle with throughout the week here, and sometimes what you can't understand here, you are always welcome. If I say something you don't understand it, you're always welcome to come on Wednesday night, because on Wednesday night we have open mic, open question. And so you could ask any question you want on Wednesday nights. And if we don't have the answer, we know where to go find the answer. And so I am thankful for the reading of the scriptures today. Let us go to Genesis, Bereshit, chapter 32, verse 4. And Yaakov, Vayishlach, Yaakov sent messengers ahead of him to his brother Esau in the land of Seir, the countryside of Edom. Now, what's interesting here is it begins with he sent messengers. But the last verse, chapter 32, in verse 1, it talks about how angels of Elohim met him. Angels of Elohim met him. But over here it says he sent messengers. Reading English doesn't give you the flavor. And, you know, just like in any language, Spanish, Chinese, any language you choose, there's idioms, there's dichos, there's sayings and riddles that that only those that know the language could laugh to. My favorite one is the so-and-so one. Every time I say so-and-so, Mr. So-and-so, Mr. So-and-so, and then sometimes I say Mr. So-and-so. Only those of you that are Spanish speaking laugh at that. If you don't know Spanish, that's not a joke. Because it sounds like it's so-and-so. But sonso in Spanish means dummy. So it sounds like it, so it's a little play on words, and it's a little dicho, it's a little thing that, again, and we have a lot of those in Spanish. I'm sure every language has those. But what's interesting here is that the word angel and the word messenger in Hebrew is the same word. In English, an angel of Elohim is this spirit being. A messenger is this person that was sent as an envoy. But in Hebrew, the word malach is the same word. So you could actually say, messengers of Elohim met him, or he sent angels. The word malach, and this comes out also in Greek. The Greek word where we get the word angel is the word angelos. Angelos, in fact, we get the word evangelism, evangelism from this. Evangelism is what? Good news. And a good newser, an evangelist, a person who's a good newser, is an angel. He's a messenger that has been sent to what? Give good news. And so over here, I just wanted to bring that out just because I really encourage all the young people. Now, I'm not talking to the viejos, okay? I'm not talking to the viejos. Because learning Hebrew is a lifelong endeavor, and it's something you really need to start when they're children. So really encourage the children to be part. And by the way, my Hebrew class that we are going to be beginning here in the mid-season, it's a $99 class. To take it, it is one weekend. It is a weekend. And in one weekend, you will learn how to read, write, and pronounce Hebrew. And it's $99, but for anyone under 12, it's free. And so I would encourage you to allow your kids to come, and like that, they will be able to learn Hebrew. Yaakov, Jacob, sent messengers ahead of him to his brother Esau. Now, Esau was living in the land of Seir. That is in the Negev, very deep south on the both sides of what would be the Jordan, the ancient Jordan, from the Dead Sea to Eisen Geber or Eilat today. There is a rift there that is part of the great Africa rift all the way down to south to the middle of Africa. There's a rift there, which is the Jordan Rift. And the land of Seir is that area, even where we call Petra today, that land. And that's where Esau lived. He had gone down there. Now, what's interesting is that Yaakov has been 20 years. 20 years he was in Padan Aram. He was 20 years. So after 20 years of not seeing his brother, remember he left a escondidas. He left as a fugitive. He left knowing that his brother was after his skin. His brother was going to kill him, put him to the sword. And he left. He left with his mom and dad's blessing to go find the wife over there. And not only did he find a wife, he found two wives and 2 other women that gave him up to this point 11 children. So now he's coming back 20 years with 11 children, 4 women, 4 wives in a sense, and he's coming back. But he doesn't know how his brother's going to react. He doesn't know how his brother's going to accept him, to receive him. So he sends messengers ahead. And of course, Esau and his people, when these messengers come, they'll know who they are. Of course, they'll be dressed different. Their accent's going to be different. And so they're going to, well, who are these guys? So he goes over there, sends messengers to them, and says, I've been with Laban till now, for 20 years in a sense. But I'm coming back to you. I'm coming back. I want peace. I want you to accept me. Of course, when the messengers find him with 400 men already coming, the spies had already told Esau what was happening. So here comes Esau with his 400 men already, and they come and tell Yaakov, guess what, Yaakov? Esau has 400 men. Now, think of that. Think of a 20-year separation. You notice that in yourself, when you worry about something and you worry about it for 20 years, think of it. He left as a fugitive. And now he's worried about the same thing 20 years. Now what are you worried about for 20 years? I stopped. There he is, 400 men with him. He's going to wipe us out. He's going to wipe us out. So what he decided to do is in verse, 7, 8, it says, Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed. He was greatly afraid and distressed. So he divides his caravan into 2 groups. Well, I'll send this one to the right and this one's to the left. If he attacks the right, the left will survive. And he does that. And he prays. Elohim, Elohim, Yahweh, Yahweh. He prays. You said you were going to prosper me. You said you were going to give me seed. You said you were going to do all these things for me. Save me. Save me. And Adonai does. In fact, this prayer of Yaakov, think of it, 20 years of worry and 1 prayer. 20 years of worry and 1 prayer. And Adonai answers the 1 prayer. This teaches us that every one of us has all these worries in the back of our heads. What are some of the worries you have? What are some of the doubts you have? What are some of the situations that every one of us encounters? Whether they be financial, whether they be end-of-life worries about our own selves, others around us, medical worries. You know, we get a little pain in our head. Oh, man, it has to be cancer. Oh, wait a second. You know, Satan does all kinds of mess. He plays with our mind, doesn't he? But think of it. 20 years of worrying. I'm coming back. I'm coming back. After 14 years, he wanted to come back, remember? And he stayed 6 more years. Maybe part of that was, what if I go? But we're going to see that Adonai answered his prayer. And so what he does is, because of his fear, and he prayed, he also wants a little of that human manipulation. The word manipulation, by the way, comes from the word mano, hand. It's a Latin word or Spanish word, mano, To manipulate means to use your hand, to do something with our own hands. And how many of you know that sometimes we always want to help Adonai out? That was the problem with Abraham. That's the problem with Isaac. Everyone, they always want to help Adonai out. It's almost like if I'll pray to you, but what if? What if? But total surrender, total trust is what answers prayer. This teaches us that every one of us now, what we need to do is ask Adonai, give our worries, give our everything to Adonai, and then just wait for him to work. It's not like us. It's not like our humanness. But that's where faith comes in. That's what faith is. And so what happens here, he gets all these gifts for Esau, and he says there in verse 20, I shall conciliate him by sending him a gift in advance. So Yaakov is on the east bank of the Jordan, on the north side of the Jabbok, on the fort there. And he's over there in what is called Jordan today. And he sends these gifts, and that night, what he does is he sends the two parties, the two groups, to the other side of the Jabbok, to the south side of the Jabbok. He goes and he stays on the north side. He stays on the north side, and we really don't know why he stayed back there. We don't know if he just wanted to spend some meditation, some prayer. Definitely, I don't believe it was because he was afraid and he sends the women and children ahead. But this is a time between him and Adonai. That same night, it says he rose, and taking his two wives, he sent them to the other side. And then in verse 26, and there was one that wrestled with him until daybreak. And there was a one. Remember, we're talking about there was a place. Hamakom. There was a place. He went to that place which was Beit El, the house of Elohim. But now, on the way back, he encounters a one. He encounters a person. In fact, in the Hebrew, the one is a man. And this man, think of it, there you are, you send everybody to the other side of the river, and you're going to spend some time with Adonai, you're going to be alone, and all of a sudden, some guy comes and starts wrestling with you. And he just starts wrestling. And you can't get the upper hand, and he can't get the upper hand. And it's like an even match. And they wrestle, not for 20 minutes, not for an hour. Boy, man, I remember I used to wrestle with the kids when they were small. It got to the point that as they were growing up, I was getting tired. Even with wrestling with children, it's getting tired. But think of him. Here he is wrestling with someone that is his equal, not for an hour, for 12 hours from sunset to sunrise. As the sun is about to come up, they're still wrestling all night long. And it goes on to say there, seeing that he could not master him, he struck him in the socket of his hip. The man, the wrestler, could not overcome him, could not overpower him. One of the things that Adonai does many times is he tests us. One of the questions that has come up throughout the centuries is, who was this one? Who was this person? Now, there's been all kinds of stories in Greek, in Hebrew, or I should say Jewish mythology. They say it was the angel of Esau. It was his angel. Others say it was Hasatan. That it was Satan who came to wrestle, to stop him, to not let him come back to the promised land. But who was this man? Who was this man that Jacob could not overcome? Because remember, the man, the wrestler, could not get the best of Jacob. Jacob, in fact, when they wrestled, it uses the term holding on. Holding on. So you know when you're wrestling with people, you have these grabs and you grab and you hold on and you go on the floor and do circles and you try to stand up and you're holding on. What's interesting about Jacob in this wrestling match is that Jacob held on. He didn't let go. He did not let go. Now, wrestling for an hour or two, wrestling for 3-4 hours would be hard. You just want to give up. But look at Jacob. He didn't give up. He wasn't a giver-upperer. He wasn't this guy that would just, he didn't give up all the trials that he went through with Laban, with the daughters, with the 10 times Laban changed his wages and cheated him, and yet he never gave up until Adonai says it's time to go back home. Then he went back home. He wasn't a giver-upperer. This teaches us that neither should we. How many of you have the Jacob faith? The Jacob thing that you will hold on to Adonai. Now, I believe Jacob at some point in time started realizing that this was no ordinary man. And here is where it really counts. Because as they were wrestling, the one could not overpower Yaakov. So what he does, knowing that he could have overpowered him anytime. We know that. He could have, anytime he wanted, he could have overpowered him. But just like with our kids, sometimes we let them win, right? I still let Zach win all the time. We let them win. So Adonai here, all he does is he gets his finger, which he could have anything. And all he does is he touches his hip. All he does is boom. And all of a sudden, Yaakov, it says here that his hip was dislocated as he wrestled with him. And now he said, let me go. The man says, let me go, for day is breaking. But Yaakov answered, I will not let you go unless you bless me. Here's where we know that Yaakov knew who it was, because you always ask a blessing from a superior to an inferior. A superior blesses down. You are blessed from above. And so Yaakov says, I will not, I'm going to hang on until you bless me. I'm going to hang on for dear life until, now remember, he's probably hurting because of the dislocated hip. Have you ever dislocated a hip or even a finger or a toe, an ankle, a wrist? It hurts. And all of a sudden, boom, the one dislocated his hip and he's in pain. And all of a sudden he says, I will not let you go until you bless me. Then he asked, what is your name? ¿Cómo te llamas? What is your name? My name is Supplanter. My name is Deceiver. My name is Heel Catcher. Because remember, when we use the word Yaakov, Jacob, Yaakov doesn't mean nothing to us because we're not looking at the language. We don't know the language. Just like when you say, my name is Dolores. We don't know the language. A lot of people don't know. But if the person were to say, my name is sorrowful labor pains. That's what Dolores means. Dolores, right? Those of you that Dolores means strong, hard labor pains. Oh, my name is hard labor pains. My name is sorrow. Most people won't say that. Or, what is your name? My name is Linda. You know, nobody will say, oh, I am beautiful. You know, nobody's going to use the word beautiful. But you say Linda, and it's just a name. So we use this name, that name. We don't even know what our names are. By the way, when you get baptized, find a biblical name that has meaning to you or to your family, to who you are, to what you are. So you could be known by that. Adonai actually has a name for us that we won't know when we stand before Adonai. Can you imagine? Patricia has another name. We don't know what that name is. It's only a name that Adonai and her know about. Think of it. It's a little pet name between Adonai and her. We knew her as Pat. Adonai knows her as. Adonai has a name for every one of us. What is your name? My name is Supplanter. He admitted who he was. Think of it. He admitted who he was because his name was who he was. By the way, Laban, pure, clean, snow, white, heart, all these good, that was his name. And yet he deceived the deceiver. He supplanted the supplanter. He learned his lesson. What you sow is what you reap. He sowed and he reaped. Now he comes across, he comes over here, he leaves Paran Aram, and he's coming to the land, and now before he gets in is his final test. Who are you? In fact, who are you? Who am I? In the 60s, there was that thing was, I need to find out who I am. Most people didn't find out who they were. They're still finding out who they are. But who are we really? What is our name? Not so much what was given to us, but if you had a name for who you really are. Because remember, only I know myself, only you know yourself. Nobody knows us. Nobody really knows who each person is. And what is your name? The sum of your life. What is your name? The sum of this son of laughter, the son of laughter, the son of Isaac. The sum of his life was supplanter, heel catcher, deceiver. I am deceiver. But then, your name will no longer be Yaakov, deceiver, supplanter, but Israel. Your name will be Israel. And this is the first time that that term, Israel, is found in Scripture. And Israel is not just a place. Israel is, first of all, a person. Israel is the ex-supplanter. Israel is the ex-deceiver. And now, as he crosses the... Notice that many of the situations in life have to do with river crossings. Things happen on the other side of the river. That's why they're always called Ivrit, Hebrew. The word Hebrew means a river crosser. El del otro lado. El de aquel lado. The guy from the other side. And in a sense, even with Moses, Paul says that when Israel crossed the Sea of Reeds and the sea opened up, they were baptized into Moses. There was a baptism, an immersion in water. Water is always the sense of cleansing. And when you come to the mikvah, you come to the river. You come to the river and you cross the river. In fact, the mikvot in Israel have one set of stairs going down, one set of stairs going up. And the reason they do that is of the idea that you went in, but you crossed the river. Paul tells us that that is, in a sense, crossing the river of death. When you go into the water, you die with Messiah, and when you come up, you are resurrected into new life. And in a sense, that's what happens here. Yaakov meets Messiah. And just like in baptism, you get a new name. Over here, as he crosses the river the next day in the morning, he crosses the river, all of a sudden he's a new man. He's a new man. A new man with a new name. A new man, not the old man Yaakov, although sometimes the old man comes back, right? Every one of us has an old man inside of us. But we have the new man. We are the new man. But we have that old man doesn't want to die. And sometimes that old man comes back. And when things don't happen the way we like, that old man comes back. You know, someone honks at you in the back. And you just came, hallelujah, praise Adonai, you know. And someone keeps honking. And all of a sudden, turn around. The old man. The old Yaakov. I know that doesn't happen to you guys, so let's go on. Your name shall no longer be Yaakov, but Israel, because you have been strong against Elohim. And the word Israel is that one who prevails with Israel. In fact, it's also the word for prince, that one who is a prince. And a prince is someone who prevails, someone who stands and is strong, a strong one. Israel. Now, think of Israel now. Israel now is a man. That man's 12 sons are going to become Israel, the nation. And they're going to go to Israel and make the ex-land of Canaan into the land of Israel. The land of Israel is actually the land of Yaakov and his sons. Yaakov and sons. And so Israel is Israel and sons. Israel and sons. But remember, it's not just physical sons that make up Israel. Because Israel is not just a racial group who are blood descendants of Yaakov. We're going to see that Israel is also anyone who is baptized into Yeshua. When you get baptized into Yeshua, you become Israel, no matter what your ethnic color, anything used to be. Now you are Israel. I'm not saying you're Jewish. You know, a lot of times we get those two terms mixed up, and sometimes people say, "Oh, I'm Jewish now." No, we're not Jewish. If you're Jewish, you're Jewish. If you find out you're Jewish through DNA or whatever, through genealogy, you're Jewish. But Israel is something higher, something more profound. Israel is the people of Elohim. Whether you're Jew or Gentile, whether you're male or female, whether you're rich or poor, slave or free. If you are baptized into Messiah Yeshua, one of the inheritances of that baptism is the inheritance of Abraham's promises of a land, a seed, and a blessing. And you get the blessing of salvation. You are now part of the people of Elohim. And let me tell you, the land is yours. The land belongs to us. When I go to Israel, I'm not going to another country. I'm going home. I'm going to my father's land. I'm going to Abraham's land. I'm going to our ancestors' land. Well, we could say, well, because you're Jewish. No, it has nothing to do with being Jewish. It doesn't have nothing. It has to be with Yeshua. By the way, Jewish people that do not have Yeshua, that is not their land. It's not their land. It belongs to Abraham and whoever Abraham inherits it to, and it's to Abraham and his seed. It's to Isaac and his seed. It's to Jacob and his seed. And remember what we've been studying from Galatians. That seed is one, not plural, one, which is Messiah. And if you get baptized into Messiah, then it's your land. But if you're not baptized into Messiah, it's not your land. You might live in it. You might call yourself Israeli, but it's not your land. It's Adonai's land. And it's Abraham's land. And it's Messiah's land. Amen. Israel is Messiah's land. Okay. Jacob made this request. I beg you, tell me your name. Now he wants to know the name of the one, the name of the man. Why do you ask my name? And he blessed him. He gave him a blessing. We don't know what the blessing is. He blessed him. But he didn't tell him the name. We don't know the name. We do know the name, but it's not revealed here. But watch this. Verse 31. Yaakov named the place Peniel. Panai is face. Panai. Panai al Panain is face to face. Peniel is the face of Elohim. This definitely tells us that definitely it's not Hasatan. It's not the angel of Yaakov, of Esau. He met Elohim face to face. He named the place Peniel, for I have survived. And the sun rose, he left Peniel, limping because of his hip. So it says from then on, he had a limp. Although we don't know if that's true, as we will see in the future. That is the reason, in fact, here in the last couple of verses, that is the reason why to this day the Israelites do not eat the sciatic nerve. What the Israelites do, part of kosher eating, is when you slaughter an animal to take out the sciatic nerve. Now, most definitely Jewish slaughterhouses do that automatically, and many other major slaughterhouses, at least up until recently, have always done that for kosher slaughter. Now, many in Judaism today, they will not eat nothing of the hindquarters because, again, one of the rabbinic myths is that you have to build a fence around Torah. Well, Torah doesn't need a fence. We just need to obey what it says. We don't have to add and take away all kinds of stuff to, make sure that we don't do it. So to make sure you don't do it, they won't eat the hindquarters. But you're allowed to eat the hindquarters. In fact, you're allowed to eat all around it. It's just that they take the sciatic nerve out. And if you slaughter an animal, and definitely it's a kosher animal for sure, you just pull it out. You cut it out. But that, it says, by the way, notice that it's not a law. Notice that it's not a law. It says this is why. So it's a tradition. But it's a tradition based on this. But it's not a law. If you don't do that, there's no law against it. If you eat an animal and has the sciatic nerve in it, there's no sin involved. There's no bad boy thing doing that. So just remember that. And when we read Scripture, let's read it carefully. Because from this, a lot of people have gotten all, what people do sometimes, they come to Scripture and they see things like that, and they build not only one law, but 10,000 laws. Or they have a verse, a word, and they find out how many numbers are in that word. Oh, that means this, and that means that. We need to get away from that. So what happens is that after this, he crosses the Jabbok, he meets with Esau, everything is fine. And go ahead and read that. I want to go now down to chapter 33, verse 18, and just do one more section of our 20 sections today. And before we close here, I'm already running out of time. Jacob arrived safely in the town of Shechem. We know it as Shechem. It's actually Shechem, in Canaanite territory on his return from Padan Aram. He encamped opposite the town. For 100 silver pieces he bought from the sons of Hamor, the father of Shechem, the piece of land on which he pitched his tent. Now, it is important. Abraham bought Hebron, Machpelah. He bought that. And at that point, it wasn't a big place. It was just that. That, what is now Hebron, Abraham bought. Jacob buys Shechem, which is on the north side north of present Jerusalem, on what's called the West Bank, what is Palestinian territory today. So what is called Palestinian territory in the south West Bank and the Northwest Bank are bought by our ancestors. David later on buys the Temple Mount. So the three areas that Palestinians say, this is ours, actually were not only gifted by Adonai to Abraham, Isaac, Yaakov, and David, but they were bought by them, bought and paid for by them. And then it says, there he built an altar. Chapter 34, verse 1. Dinah, now of course many of us know her as Dinah. In Hebrew it's Dinah. So we can't say who's with Dinah in the kitchen anymore. But Dinah, who was Jacob's daughter by Leah. By the way, earlier when we were talking about the sons of Jacob, it says that Jacob had Leah. The only reason Leah is mentioned is because she's going to be mentioned in this story. Yaakov probably had a lot of daughters too. Notice that you mostly have more daughters than sons. There are more daughters that are born than men. More females than men that are born. So in Scripture, it only mentions sons. But this is one of those areas where women, according to Torah, according to Paul, women are in the background. Here's one of those background ideas that women are mentioned. But the only reason Dinah was mentioned is because she's part of the story. Jacob's daughter went out to visit the women of the region. So here you have been living in Paran Aram, way on the other side of the Jordan, the other side of the Jabbok, way over there north by the Euphrates. And now your whole family moves into new territory. And so what Dinah decided to do, she looked at her clothes and looked at the clothes of the girls around her and says, oh man, they have some nice dresses over there. They have, oh man, look at those colors. So she decided to go out shopping. You guys read that there, right? She went shopping. It says that. She went shopping. Don't shake your head no. She went shopping. How do I know that? You girls have always said, I'm going to go shopping. Right? How many of you girls go shopping? None? One? Oh, one. Okay. Yeah, all the men pointing. She went to go visit the women of the region. Now, we have a problem here. And we have a situation that will arise just because of this. We have two cultures here. The Hebrew culture and the Canaanite culture. Now, Canaanite culture, Canaanite thought and culture are totally different, the way they think. And that's why one of the ideas is when you marry someone from another culture, one of the most important things is start learning the culture, start learning the language. Both of them should learn each other's language, because much in the language, in the culture, in the history of a people tells us a lot about who they are. Their genealogy tells us, the names, all these things tell us a lot. But Dinah here takes off, and this is something unusual. And this tells us something that maybe Dinah might have been an older person, because a younger girl, remember, was on, the father had very strong control. But over here, Dinah goes out to talk to the women of the land. Not the girls, but the women. She was a younger girl. It mentions that she's younger. But she goes out and talks to the Ishot, the women, the older women of the region. Why did she go on to go meet them? She's out there, in a sense, in enemy territory. Where is she? Enemy territory. Enemy, not maybe because of weapons, not enemy because that's a bad barrio, but enemy because it's a different culture. Every one of us should know that a different culture many times is enemy territory. And that's wisdom. That's wisdom. Well, what happens, it says there, Shem, the son of Hamor the Hivite, who was ruler of that region. So Shechem, the son of Hamor. That means that Shechem and his father, the ruler, Shechem was a prince. You know, this guy wasn't just one of the boys in the corner. This isn't one of the guys where, you know, all of a sudden, you know, she's hanging around with. We're talking about an upper class person, a ruler, a prince. And you know what those princes do? What do? They ride around in their Mercedes, in their, 5-speed little Corvettes or something like that. Not talking about anyone that would own a Corvette here. But they ride around, you know, and they have class. And all of a sudden, there's 4 things that are mentioned here. Number 1, it says, he saw her. But it's not just that he was riding around in his car and he sees her and all of a sudden, no, it says he saw her. He kept seeing her. He kept, in a sense, even maybe stalking her, keeping an eye on her. He kept an eye on her, would probably be a better translation. But then it says that not only did he see her, but then it goes on to say that he carried her off. He carried her off. Now, it has the idea of force. He took her. He took her, like to grab, to take. So whatever she was doing out there with the women, all of a sudden Shem has an eye on her, and he takes her, and then it goes on to say that he lays with her. They become intimate with one another, and then by doing this, he dishonors her. Remember, he dishonors her from the biblical culture. He dishonors her from the Hebraic culture, because this is not how things are done in our culture. That might be how the Canaanites do things, but this is not how we do things. Now, what doesn't come out in the story, that if you really read it intently comes out, is that it's not a one-time thing. It's not something that he does and then sends her off. What he does is when he takes her, he keeps her. And she's there a week, a month, we don't know how long. She's there with him. Now, we don't know if she was captive or if she was by her own accord allowing herself to stay there. We don't know. There's a lot of the story that we don't know. And just because of that, that should teach us, especially the young men and young women, how to be and how not to be, how to act and how not to act. First of all, this is not the way a Torah observant young man acts. This is not how a Torah observant young man acts. We as young men will never do that. Amen? Young men, we will never do that. Say, I as a young man will never do that. I will never do that. We will never do that. And over here it says that all of a sudden he was captivated by Dinah. It says he was captivated. I don't know what some of the other translations say. He was captivated. That's not what the Hebrew says. That's not what the Hebrew says. Those of you that have your Hebrew Bibles, look at that word. It says, his soul was tied to Dinah. He had a soul tie. Have you ever heard of soul ties? A soul tie? There are good soul ties and there are bad soul ties. Many people think that all soul ties are bad. A soul tie is when your soul and the soul of someone else are tied together, which in marriage should be the only time that should occur. But here, because he had relations with her, his soul was tied to her. And now what he wants is he wants to get married, which scripturally, biblically, totally is what should be done. Later on, Moses is told when two have relations, there's only two options. Either they get stoned or they get married. We're not talking anything, just having relation. You get stoned or you get married. And the marriage part, Moses says, with no possibility of divorce. You know. So what option do most people get? Well, they should get married. Now, he says, I want to marry her. Meanwhile, Jacob had heard how his daughter Dinah had been dishonored. We have another problem here. Jacob heard that his daughter Dinah had been dishonored, but he doesn't do anything about it. He doesn't go get her. She's still with Shem. He doesn't do it. He just heard. But what he does decide, now remember, he is an old man, and Shechem's a young guy. And there's all these friends of Shechem from the barrio. And it says there, but since his sons were out on the countryside with the livestock, Jacob said nothing until they came back. Again, could be weeks or months. He didn't say anything. Hamor, the father of Shechem, went out and talked to Jacob. When Jacob's sons returned from the countryside, they heard the news. These men, the brothers of Dinah, were outraged and infuriated that Shem had insulted Israel. Now remember, he insulted the dad. This was an insult to Jacob and Israel, all the sons of Jacob, by taking Jacob's daughter, an offense that could not be overlooked. Now remember, this is before the Torah, but this is in line with what Torah would be written. All these things were just passed on orally. All these, in a sense, laws. Even before the Torah, there was Torah. Even before the law, there was law. They did not live in a lawless society. Today, we don't live in a lawless society. But what we have here is that they were infuriated because of what they have done. But Hamor said to them, the heart, the nephesh, the soul. Here's where we get the word soul tie again, from up there and now again. The soul of my son Shechem is set on your daughter. I beg you, let him marry her. So, in a sense, Shechem wants to do things right. For all intents and purposes, in a normal situation, and in fact in our country today, this happens all the time, where two cultures, two different people, they meet, they date, they get married, no problem. In today's culture, in the way people think today. But totally, this is not acceptable. Now remember, this is before the law of Moses, as people always say, the law. This is before that. But he says, let him marry you. And then there in verse 9, ally yourselves with us by marriage. So now, Hamor says, hey, I'll tell you what, let's ally, let's become allies by marriage. We'll give you our daughters. We'll take your sons. Let there be a national intermarriage that we could become one nation. intermarriage makes nations one with one another. And he says, let them intermarry. Demand whatever you want. I will pay, demand a bridal price of $10 million. I'll pay whatever. $50 million, $1 billion, I'll pay whatever. Whatever Yaakov and his sons would have asked, Shem would have sought to do that. But then the sons of Jacob give an answer in verse 13. And the answer is, we cannot do that. You've dishonored her. You've dishonored her. We cannot do that. To give our sister to uncircumcised men would be such a disaster and a disgrace for us. We could only agree on one condition. On one condition. And here's the condition: that you become like us. In other words, that you convert to our way. That you become like us. You guys, you Canaanites, become like us. Now, by the way, this is in biblical times how people became what we would call today Jewish. This is how people become Israel. People could convert to Jewishness today by marriage. Many people convert. And here's the thing: by circumcision. To this day, this is the law in Israel or in any Jewish. If you want to become Jewish, you get circumcised if you're a male and you're Jewish. The children born to you before circumcision are Gentile. The children born after circumcision are Jewish. Anyone born before you converted, they're still Gentiles. But anyone that's born after conversion, they are no longer Gentiles, they're actually Jewish. And that's how a lot of people who are Jewish, that aren't really blood Jewish, are Jewish, not by blood, but in fact they're, many times leaders, rabbis in the synagogue, because some of their ancestors up the line converted, and it has come down to this day. So they agreed to it. We could become one nation. Yeah, you guys get circumcised. They said, we will be circumcised. So they all got circumcised. Every man in the whole city got circumcised. Just so that Shem, the leader, the son of the ruler, isn't that the way they always do that? They always, because of these elites, they were the elite. And the elite says, I want that girl. You got to get circumcised. Okay, me and everybody else, and then we'll have an intermarriage. And by the way, in verse 24, and in verse 23, the Shechemites have an ulterior motive. Part of their idea is, if we do this, we will have all their cattle, we'll have all that, we'll do all this. So they had an ulterior motive. And they all got circumcised. But in verse 25, on the third day, when they were all still in pain, Jacob's two sons, Simeon and Levi, brothers of Dinah, took their swords, marched into the town, and killed all the males. So all the males were vulnerable. They were in pain. They had just been circumcised. They couldn't do anything. And here comes these two brothers and killed all the males. By the way, they killed Shem and they killed Hamor, the dad and the son, and they took Dinah home. So all this time, Dinah was with Shem. Again, we don't know with or against her will, but they took her home. We don't find anything about Dinah. We don't know what happened to her. They took her home. And they go and not only do that, but this is where we have overkill. When someone does something wrong, justice is people paying their due. But you don't go overboard. And you don't give more judgment. What they do here is, if you see, they carried all their riches, their little children. They even carried their wives, looted everything to be found in their houses. Of course, Jacob is upset because, wait a second, what have you two boys done? Now he's afraid that all the other Canaanites are going to go against them. And one of the things that we learn from this is that revenge, remember, Adonai demands justice, and we should always pray for justice. But we should pray more for mercy. Jacob and the son should have looked at this idea with what? With mercy. Not with judgment. Justice, yes. Judgment, no. Or revenge, no. And because they did this, they felt estranged from the people. They took off. By the way, if it wasn't for Adonai, they started pursuing him, but it says Adonai brought a divine fear, terror on the other Canaanites that they stopped pursuing Jacob. Because Adonai had to intervene because of what these two sons did. Now, as we close, one of the things that I really want to encourage every one of us, especially in this day, as we said a little while ago, we are living in times, and I guess I'm still biblically old-fashioned. I don't want to be culturally old-fashioned, but I want to be biblically old-fashioned, knowing that the biblical fashion is the only fashion. There's no other fashion except the biblical fashion. And I want to follow that fashion that should always be true, because Torah never changes. Torah never changes. Cultures change, laws change, but Torah never changes. And Torah, through these stories, according to Paul in the Gospels, are meant to teach us lessons. So every one of us should, especially in our day, take these lessons. Dinah goes to meet the women of the country. She goes into unfamiliar territory, and there someone is captivated by her, and a whole situation that should have never happened with her. With how many loss of life do we have in this thing? Now, we can't blame Dinah. We can't blame Shechem. We can't blame either of them. It's just that they were put in a situation where really they shouldn't have been in the first place. One of the things that we should never do is put ourselves in situations where we should never be. And part of the problem that we've had in the past, part of the regrets that many people have, is I always hear that same thing: I shouldn't have been there, I shouldn't have done that. It's that one choice that opens the door. And in our own lives, in the lives of our children, in the lives of the congregation, think of one choice. One choice opens up what they call a Pandora's box of all kinds of situations. One door opens up 4 or 5 other situations, and those open up others, and the list grows. This is why it would behoove every young person, not only every young person, every one of us, that we be careful where we walk, where we are, what we do, knowing that Hasatan is ready to come and snatch us, trip us, do all kinds of things against us. Let's stand. Father, we thank you for the opportunity that we have to be here today. We pray that as we go, that we would take, Father, there's so much and so little time, as we always say. But there's so many other lessons that we missed, that we passed by. Father, teach us these lessons so that we could live our lives learning by the experiences of others, learning by others' failures, so that we could become the Torah observant men and women that you've called us to be. In Yeshua's name, amen.